My interest in the environment really grew out of a deep sense as a teenager that we lived in a world that is lively, animated, even sacred. And so as a teenager, I looked a lot for answers to questions about our place in the world and what it means to live a good life. So I think many people who become very interested in the environment maybe talk about a background with an interest in birdwatching or naturalist pursuits, but my interest really came out of religion and philosophy. It came out of trying to ask those big questions about our place in the world. And so I looked around, I read widely, but I found really that wherever I looked, I was less interested in answers to those questions about our place in the world that were grounded in a kind of transcendent figure or transcendent source of value, and much more interested in looking to the world around us, looking to the natural world as a source of inspiration and wonder. And so that is really how I guess I was drawn to thinking about the environment, to valuing the environment and the natural world as a way of understanding who we are and a way of thinking through how we ought to live well in the world. My work's really sought to reframe humanity's place in the world, our understanding of what the natural world is in a range of different ways. But at the core of all of that work is a sense that we live in a multi-species world. And that really means that we need to get beyond telling stories just about humans, stories in which the rest of the living world is just a background to human dramas. It's the stage on which human culture and history and lives are played out. We need to sort of burst that anthropocentric bubble and instead appreciate that the worlds that we inhabit, and in fact all of us, our lives, are shaped in relationship with other species. So that we really need to take seriously the fact that other species, other living creatures, other non-living creatures and entities, geological forces, hydrological forces, that we're all shaping worlds together. We're all agents, if you like, in the shaping of worlds and in the shaping of one another. And then we also need to take seriously the fact that it's not just human lives and outcomes that matter, that other living beings are at stake in the world too. And so when we do that, I think we start to tell very different stories about ourselves and about our world. And I think when we think about human life, for example, we need to appreciate that at a species level, we have of course been deeply shaped by our co-evolutionary relationships with all sorts of other species, with the landscapes that we've inhabited. At the level of our cultures and our communities, we're shaped in our ways of life, in our livelihoods, in all sorts of things by the species that we happen to live amongst and what we think of them and how we value them. And then of course as individuals, our lives are only possible through relationships with other species that provide the air that we breathe, the food that we eat. So in every way, really when we think about human life, it is a multi-species project. The kind of storytelling that I've been particularly interested in developing in my work is fundamentally ethical. What is really fundamentally needed, and I think this is a core mission, a complicated and maybe impossible mission of the environmental humanities, is the deep-seated culture change. I think what we are really seeing going on in the world around us is a product of a fundamentally dysfunctional way of understanding what human life is and our place in the world. And that is that's not a kind of change that comes about overnight, that kind of culture change. It's not something that any one storyteller or set of stories is going to bring about. It's a big and ongoing project that pushes back against what have become dominant ways of understanding life, at least in the Western world and in many other parts of the world. And so I see fundamentally that that's the core project of extinction studies and of the environmental humanities. So I'm often asked about hope and whether or not I think we can or should be hopeful. And I guess I would say that hope is a dangerous and complicated proposition. It's dangerous because it can sometimes become an excuse not to act. We continue just to be hopeful, to kind of dabble in a kind of wishful thinking that things will ultimately work out. But it's also dangerous not to have any hope at all. So ultimately, I guess where that has led me to is a notion of hope that is grounded in an effort to cultivate the best possible relationships with others that are still available to us. So that is ultimately what I am hopeful about, not about any kind of utopic future, which will never arrive, but rather I'm hopeful that we can make the kinds of changes to our understandings of ourselves and our place on the planet that we can, as communities, perhaps even as a species, take up the work of trying to cultivate better ways of living on the planet.